Oh, Sheppy. He was very sad that he threw up. He thought he was in trouble. He's not, but it's his fault that he threw up. I have never had a dog so stubborn. He refuses to eat his kibble, and he'll refuse for days if he wants people food. And was it last night? No, 2 nights ago. I made chicken breast, uh, some curry chicken, and chicken cordon bleu last night. He has not eaten his kibble in 2 days. That's why he threw up, because his stomach's upset because he won't eat. He's so frustrating, but he'll eat it eventually. This is not the first time. But there's a paper kite. Do you help with sleepies? You want to come say hi? Nope. Okay. So he's hiding downstairs now because he thinks he's in trouble. Dogs are fun. I completely lost my train of thought. Okay. Well, we're diving into a not good subject, so. So uh, that summer, that first summer that I was renting the apartment and everything, I wasn't really renting it, but you know what I mean. That summer, I found out that Arthur had cancer, and I became his driver to and from his appointments. It was a long drive of about 170 miles round trip, and we did this 3 times a week, which I like to drive, so it didn't bother me too much, but I still argued with him to fly because there were bottle jumper airports. Anyway, um, we did hyperbaric chamber treatments and chemo. We talked about many things on the long drives, mostly his incredible and probably partially fabricated past, but we also had intense theological discussions. He brought up the subject of demons one day, and he became the first person I confided in about my past. He thought it was interesting, but wasn't very helpful. uh, I learned that he wasn't a warlock, as I had originally suspected, but he told me he was aware of masking his presence, and he attributed it to being in the war in Vietnam. I also learned that he had worked on a chronological Bible and a chronological history of the life of Jesus. He was hesitant to show me his work, but I was finally granted access to his man cave library on one return trip from the hospital. From then on, we would sit and drink and plan his Bible, which is a terrible sentence. Uh, he also got me enrolled in a seminary course, and I started to study seriously. I still have that seminary course actually. It's on cassette. It's like a mail-in course. The cassettes are rough to listen to. They are so dry. I got about halfway through and then I realized I didn't agree, unfortunately, with some ethics of that school, so I dropped out. But anyway, uh, during one of our long hospital jaunts, the van I was driving began shuddering, and we thought that we might have a flat tire, so I pulled over. Taking a look, I saw that somehow the front bumper had become undone and was rubbing on one of the tires. I tried unsuccessfully to pull it back into place by hand. Uh, we debated who we could call since we did not want to drive and cause a flat or tear the bumper off. Because I'll just say, generally in Montana, it's a long way between towns. We were probably 20 miles outside the closest place that had a mechanic. Um, yeah, we were in the middle of Well, for Montana, we really weren't in the middle of nowhere, but. Mom. So, as we were talking, an old beat up green pickup pulled up behind us, and a thin man with salt and pepper hair and grizzled stubble got out and looked briefly at the problem. Now, there are people that you know, just from a glance, that you won't win a physical altercation with. This man was powerful. Like, I would have thought that he was a professional, like, he was a veteran or he did MMA, was like a black belt. Like, he was scary. Um, I was wary of this tough looking stranger and hoped he wasn't going to rob us. I was surprised when he said he had just the tools to help. And he spent just a little while, and I never did see exactly how he fixed it. I remember waiting by the road as he worked, not wanting to hover and annoy him. And I waved as one of my friends drove by. I had hoped he would stop so he wouldn't be alone with the stranger. He did not, and I thought to tease him later about leaving me stranded. The stranger got done, and I tried to pay him, which he kind of chuckled at and refused. I looked into his eyes and saw a great kindness I did not expect. He was also he was greatly amused at my offer of money, which I thought was an odd reaction. He said he didn't need it and wished us a good day, got in the truck, and left. When I got back in the van, Arthur had the biggest grin on his face I had ever seen. And before I could ask, he said that God had always taken care of him. And I remember glancing up at the roadway and not seeing the truck ahead of us. I thought, that's weird, because it was pretty much a straightaway and that I couldn't see the truck. So I was like, oh, that's weird, but I was more concerned about what Arthur was doing. I asked what he meant because behind the glee was also the mischief of someone who knew a secret. And then he said that the man who had just helped us had been an angel. I was still skeptical, but Arthur was convinced, so I kept quiet. Later on, I caught up with my friend and asked him why he didn't stop when I waved. He said he thought I was all right since I had waved. Then I said I was worried the guy that had stopped to help might have been up to no good. I remember the perplexed look on his face when he said he hadn't seen anyone there, and the conversation promptly dropped after I insisted there had been someone at the time he drove by. He asserted that there had been no green truck. And that was not the last time that kind of thing happened. So after that, I was convinced that it had been an angel. And I wondered if he had been hidden from my friend precisely for the conversation we had to show me that those things do happen. Because that was my first physical angel encounter, I guess I would say. And I thought about that a lot. Because he didn't, I'm like, all the angels are depicted as pretty young women, which is weird because the Bible, they're always depicted as men. But anyway, I would assume they would be young men, in their 20s or whatever. But this angel looked like he was in his 50s, I wouldn't say an old man, but just not how I thought an angel would look at all. And it's so things have changed over the years, and I told you that God has given me my spiritual sight back, And I have an angel in my office with me. He's the one that's assigned to me, and he's laughing at me right now. Stop laughing at me. It was scary. uh, in the fall, Arthur was deemed cancer-free. Though I was now free from the long drives, I did not gain any free time uh, because he and his wife needed help in their assisted living business. So I studied and became certified to help with in home care as well as at their facility. I was placed in an in home situation first and then moved to the small 8-bedroom facility to operate the portable hyperbaric machine they had purchased. It was a homey place, and I enjoyed taking care of the clients, even though it was a hard job that demanded a lot physically and mentally. I was glad to have gained another very useful skill. That was a good year. That was just one of the best years of my life, I think, because Arthur was cured or healed, and we just had a good time that year. It was nice. I was learning all sorts of stuff. I like to learn, so. And operating the hyperbaric chamber was actually kind of fun. It wasn't a full oxygen one. It was, I don't remember what it was. It was like 90, it might have been 80%. I don't remember what the laws were. Because it was a portable one, and there's different oxygen levels you can have in different hyperbaric chambers. The portable ones they can't be full oxygen. Anyway. That same October, my grandmother passed away, and I flew out to New York to attend her funeral. I said goodbye to the only woman from my childhood who had shown me what I felt was a true Christian example, though I realized it a little too late, which I think we all have realizations after people pass. I hope she was proud of the person I was becoming, which of course she would be. Grandmas are awesome. I knew she had prayed for my salvation, as she undoubtedly had for all her children and grandchildren. So my grandma was actually grew up Mennonite and left when she got married. She married an Englishman. So she was always, I think, a devout Christian. And you could tell just her mannerisms. She almost always, when we went to her house, God got brought up in conversation one way or another. Okay, so in the spring of 2014, I moved out of the garage apartment and into what we called the little house, which was actually a large house, but smaller than the huge house up the road, which I described before. I actually enjoyed cleaning it and spending time in a large, bright living room. It had a vaulted ceiling, and just one wall was basically all windows. It was gorgeous. The house was well worth the time I spent taking care of the grounds, and I was very happy there. I started to enjoy my time in Montana and was glad I could provide a good life for my dogs and myself. I got to hike in the mountains and swim in the lake whenever I felt like it, because I basically set my own schedule working on the book. Montana was a glorious reprieve from the pain and depression that had been in California. It was almost perfectly idyllic. My phone keeps going off. 2 seconds. 2 seconds. What do people want? Oh. Okay. Prayer request. Got it. A friend of my dad's has pneumonia, so we'll pray. Um, So, switching to a new subject in the book. Um, One night I was getting dressed for bed. The weather had turned warm and the house was well heated, so I wondered if there was an open window as I shivered from a cold draft. I turned around just as one wall of the room started to turn black, and I stared horrified as Satan stepped through it. I did not scream, but I did stumble and fall backwards, wondering if he had finally come for me and this was the night of my death. I figured my life had become too good to be true and this was how it would end. I realized that I had been unconsciously waiting for retribution. He stared at me and greeted me in a tone I could not decipher. I simply stared back, not wanting to have whatever conversation this was going to be. He shrugged off annoyance and sat in the chair ahead by the door. I eased myself up off the floor and onto my bed, hoping he wouldn't attack me. I was too shocked to even think about praying and waited for him to speak. I was just almost full panic mode. He did and cited old promises and agreements that I had made while I had worked for him. Certain payments to be made and intents to be clarified. I listened, not really paying attention to what he was saying, but more the tone in which he was speaking. He had a calm, almost friendly demeanor, and it threw me off. Never had I seen or heard him act like that, and I blurted out, "You're not here to kill me?" And I felt my fear melt away. I wondered if God wasn't letting him kill me, and it was a comforting thought. I also realized it was true, that God wasn't allowing him to kill me. Um, yeah, I'll get back into that later. And I analyzed the fact that I suddenly felt no fear. And I stared at the strange being in front of me. He kept talking, but I was not paying attention anymore, only scrutinizing the image I saw and the bizarre happenstance I found myself in. I asked him why he was here, yet again interrupting him. Then he gave me a strange proposal, which boiled down to a guise of me helping him do something, thus repairing the old agreement. I wondered why he was coming to me specifically, since I knew I wasn't anyone special, and asked just that. He didn't answer and simply said, "You'll do." I felt sick that there was something in me that he wanted, and saw he was very shrewdly using my curiosity to his advantage. Which isn't exactly the truth. He doesn't care. He just uses whoever might possibly, maybe be willing. Um, Still, I wasn't willing to be part of whatever evil scheme he had going, and I wondered why he had bothered to come to a saved person. I told him straight that I was God's now. He told me that that didn't matter. My stomach turned and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. Was he trying to get me to turn against God so blatantly? I didn't understand it. And he just really likes to mess with people. I'll just say that. He left that night after simply stating his idea. He did not even ask me to agree, but he came back every night for a week to explain in detail what he wanted to do. Only on the seventh night did he ask me what my answer was. He showed me a possible future, and I cringed at how evil would be accepted and welcomed. It made me very grateful to be living at a time that seemed much more innocent than I had thought it was. And, well, maybe I write this after. I'll just continue. People will remember that before 9/11, the US had a sense of peace that was destroyed after that day. Because people didn't really, still don't really, have a sense of being attacked on our home soil. And that sort of brought it into focus that, hey, maybe that's actually possible. Because the US has never fought a war on its own soil. So, Now, after COVID, I see there are many stages to widespread evil, and the prosperity we had before COVID was just as important as the sense of peace we had before 9/11. The state of the world after COVID is still relatively prosperous, and we need to take better notice of the true state of things to concentrate on compounding the good and not give in to fear mongering. Oddly, what he showed me gave me a sense of peace after I thought about it for a while. uh, and certainty, I had certainty that God was in control in every circumstance. I tried to figure out why he was showing me all of the evil that he did, since the illusion of evil being good and good being evil was broken from that perspective. What was the point if I could see that it was all fake? And for some reason, I'm assuming that he was betting on me doing it anyways, which I still don't get. At the end of the week, I had no answer to give him. I was too confused. God had not stopped this from taking place, so at the time, I was wondering. I was really messed up. Like, he really messed with my head. Um, so I was thinking, I had the brief thought that that was maybe his will. Obviously, it wasn't. Satan left after I made it clear I would not answer him, and I was convinced he had come to simply confuse me again. And I wondered why and who I was that he was so persistent. Surely he had more important things than to mess with the head of one small human girl. The strange visit worried me until I sternly told myself that I shouldn't be preoccupied with anything Satan did or said. I tried and mostly succeeded in forcing the incident out of my mind and attempted to bury myself in the Word of God. I started my scripture study blog and worked on helping people with backgrounds in the occult understand Christianity and tried to bring them to God. I also worked a small bit in deliverance, but did not want to overstep my bounds as I once had. Sealing demons and stuff I was worried about. Somehow, I got wind of John Ramirez through this. His story of being a satanic high priest was too close to what I had experienced to not pay attention. Although the brand of Satanism I was a part of was not Santeria, but a branch of Norse paganism that deepened into open Satanism, I had not heard anyone openly admitting the things that he did, and I was astonished. He described things in his books that only one who had truly gone down to those depths would know, and it grieved me that there were many more of us out there suffering. I admired his courage, and it felt good to not be alone in my stupidity. Learning of him also helped push me to write out what had happened. I had been considering writing a book, but I had no idea where to start, since I was shying away from the darkest parts. However, I knew that writing about it would help me conceptualize the trauma, heal from it, and looking at John's story helped embolden me to analyze the past. Which I kind of wish that it would be fun, I think, for ex Satanists to have a little group and go around and be like, hey, God is way better than all of this nonsense. Look what happened. Look what God did. So, anyway, uh, in addition to John, I heard of Bill Weiss. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry. Who had a stunning testimony of being brought to hell and back. I can attest that what he says in his story is true from being brought to hell myself in dreams and visions. I'm not going to detail it here since it's already been done, but if you're one of those people who need to see the darkness in order to be motivated to do something for good, then I would recommend you look up a video of Bill speaking on hell. We live in a time where many people don't believe in hell and don't believe it is as grievous as it really is. This is a lie to keep us comfortable so that we don't stand up and fight against evil. If there's no consequence, why fight? It is a real danger, and hell is guaranteed for those who do evil and do not rely on Jesus. For those with more understanding of who God is, you will know that absence from God is also its own hell. And I have met people that love God and believe in Jesus and just refuse to believe in hell because they can't reconcile the love of God with a place like hell. And that's a hard one. But it comes down to justice. If there is no consequence for doing bad, what's the point? Like, anyway. So, the other thing that came out of my encounter with Satan, besides becoming a more active Christian, was that I felt a great guilt about my own wickedness, which guilt and shame is different from being convicted to do better. I felt very guilty and condemned, which was not is not a God thing. Um, so, anyways, I was ashamed that I had not simply told him no and sent him away that first night. I decided I needed to go on a fast and repent. I wept bitterly that I was not even tempted. I'm having trouble reading. What's wrong with me? I wept bitterly that I was even tempted to any sort of the evil brought before me, and I prayed that God would carve out the wickedness from my heart. I envisioned him carving a hole in my heart with his two edged sword, and told him that no matter how painful it might be, I just wanted him to rid me of my violence and evil. Whatever the cost, I just wanted it gone. On the third day of my fast, God told me to run a bath. So I did and sat in the hot water weeping for hours. And I mean, I got in that bath in the afternoon and it was dark by the time I got out. I did not want to get up out of the bath until God did what I asked. But he eventually spoke to me and told me he would not do what I said, that he had something else for me, and told me to get up and take a shower and get clean. In the shower, I was so overcome with guilt that I started to scald myself in punishment. God told me to stop, and I turned the water back to normal, dejected and having no rest, now ashamed that God was disapproving of the only action I felt I could take. I wanted so desperately to be absolved, but had no clear idea of how that was to happen. Um, I'm going to cry in this next part. But those that understand God, have a relationship with Him, know that we're already absolved. We don't have, we can't do anything to make ourselves more holy or get rid of our wickedness. Like, we can practice not doing things that we shouldn't do, obviously, but for past sins, there's nothing we can do. God already paid it. Jesus already did that for us. We are already forgiven. Um, and that love of God is, I think, a gradual revelation that just compounds throughout our life. We learn more and more and more and go more deeply into the love of God. So, sticker still on. That's funny. Then Jesus came to me in what I would call a vision, but it was a physical visitation. In the shower. I clutched onto him, sobbing. I clung onto him, needing things I could not express, and bawled into his shoulder. There was no ego, no pretense. I had no thought of my nudity, but I did eventually realize that I had grabbed onto him without thinking and without permission. I let go, not sure if I was in trouble, but relieved he hadn't killed me on the spot as my mind once again went back to the ark. I was also mortified that the shoulder of his robe was soaked through and clinging to him with my tears and slobber and snot. He said it was all right and put his hand on my shoulder. He didn't tell me to look at him, however, and I knew my bowed head was appropriate. He asked me if I repented, and I said, "Yes, Lord." Then he said it was done and that I shouldn't hurt myself anymore, that I shouldn't worry about how I was going to be punished, and that it wasn't appropriate for a child of God to live in fear. I said I wouldn't hurt myself, tears still falling. He comforted me, but I was still worried about Satan and asked what I should do about him. And he told me, straightly, just to ignore him, but that I was free to tell him to leave anytime he came around. I was a little surprised by the simple response. Jesus was reminding me that he had given all his children power over the spirits, including Satan. Then, sensing he was going, I sheepishly asked if I could hug him once more. He obliged, and I felt his happiness. That he was glad for my asking. He didn't say it, but the scripture, "Ask and ye shall receive," came into my head. I knew it meant much more than just a hug. However, I know that the embrace of God is more than I can ever understand. So often when I have encounters with Jesus, I feel very small, but in a good way. Like I'm just a little baby. Shoot. There was an encounter I had somewhat recently where, and this was 3 months ago now, maybe two. I was sitting right here actually, and I was praying, just worshiping, but it wasn't anything like super crazy or specific. It was just my regular prayer time, whatever. And occasionally I'll have these encounters with Jesus throughout the years. But his face came like right just about like here away, like close, but not like bam. Anyway, and I don't know why. I didn't think about it at all. But I reached up and I grabbed his beard and I was scrunching his beard like a toddler would do. And I was like, tee hee. And it was just the sweetest, intimate moment. And he had booped me. We just stayed like that for a bit. And that was it. That was the whole thing. And it was just a sweet, hey, I hear you, I'm here, type of thing. So I'm gonna do one of these without crying. You watch. Shoot. So let me end the chapter and then I'll be done. Ugh. So I went to bed exhausted after that, but content about and thought how easily God fixed everything. I felt like a very simple child, but it wasn't in a demeaning way. And I knew I could ask him for about and for much more than I had been. Life wasn't about bumbling around in the dark. God wants us to ask Him directly for things, for understanding, for His wisdom and His ways. He did answer my prayer to change my heart, just not in the manner I had asked for it. God showed me in the coming years that actively practicing love for yourself and for other people is essential to prevent violent thoughts and desires. Just as being evil is an active daily choice, so is being good. It takes a daily commitment to learn compassion and self control. By God giving me what I needed daily to grow in love, He equally removed the evil from my heart, as I had asked Him to do. God is a gentle God. He will not punish a scared child, and He will not roughly treat a heart wanting to change. And I know I've said this before, but God honors you wanting to want something. Um, at this point in time, I wanted to want to love, but had no idea how. Um, just from the background and how I grew up, I was never taught how to love or how to accept it. Um, so over the next, uh, what would that be? 7 years. He taught me that, and is still teaching me that. But I'm miles better than I was way back then. uh, and so I ended this section with take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. And here, actually, once I moved to, maybe this is in the book, maybe I'm spoiling it, but you know what? No, I am not going to say it. I'm not going to spoil it. So, that's all for today. I just about did an hour between the two streams. Apologize for that. Dogs are weird. Love you. Bye.